Hello, David Snopek here from Snopek Games. This is my third devlog for the day about a game jam game that I'm making for the Godot Wild Jam number 22 called Monster Revolution. And in this game, you play a little monster guy. This is my little monster guy up here with the painted face. You can walk around, do a little rush attack. And you are in this dungeon trying to free your other monster friends so that you can go take revenge on the evil wizards that put you there and escape. So here I'm going over to my other little monster friends. Now that I've reached them, they're following me around. You can see that it says follow up here. That's like my command to them. I can also switch them to attack mode, where now they will run over and attack that evil wizard and try to take him down. So I wanted to talk about the code that's used to control the little orc guy, the player-controlled one, and the NPC ones in this video. Because I hope it will be interesting, and that is what I worked on last night for the game jam. So I'm finally catching up in these little devlog videos to where I actually am in the game jam, rather than talking about things I did days earlier. So anyway, there is one scene, this orc scene that is for both the player-controlled orcs and the NPC orcs. There is like a little exported Boolean variable here, player-controlled, that can be turned on or off that tells the scene whether it should be looking for player input or whether it should follow the kind of like AI rules that are set up for it. There's this other orc appearance variable where we can change what the orc looks like, whether it's plain, masked, or painted. That is just like a set get here that will take one of these rects from this array and set it as the region rect for the sprite texture to change, what the orc should look like. Pretty simple stuff. Going back to the node hierarchy, sprite node, collision 2D. Oh, because this is a kinematic body, so this collision shape is just about collisions with the environment and the other characters. For like getting hurt and causing damage, we have a hurt box and a hit box, which are their own separate scenes, which isn't something I used to do. I actually got that from a recent tutorial by Heartbeast, the action RPG tutorial. It's really cool. I highly recommend it. It's a great tutorial. And then like a player detection area and enemy detection area, which are used to find the player if we're supposed to follow them or find an enemy if we're supposed to attack. The really interesting stuff starts down here with these state machine node and these states nodes. So this is actually from an add-on that I created like a year ago and intended to finish up and then post on the Godot asset library, but I never did. I never finished it, and I actually never used it again after I created it a year ago because I just haven't been making games that really needed a state machine. I've been working on a VR game and an online multiplayer game, and just none of those really needed like a serious state machine. Maybe like a little state machine where you have like a variable that holds like a state in num, and then you do like some match statements or something. But this actually started to get quite complicated. So last night I switched away from the like state variable with a num in it to actually using my state machine asset. I had to fix it up a little bit, added some things. I added this allowed transitions thing where in here I can say in this text format, like you can go from the idle to the move state, from the move to the idle state, from the idle to the attack state, from the move to the attack state, so that you can say like what transitions are allowed, and if the state machine tries to do a transition that isn't allowed, it won't do it. But yeah, so this state machine, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states: idle, move, attack, cooldown, and hurt. The idle state is a little bit different depending on whether you're the player character or one of the AI characters. If you're the player character, it just stands there and bobs. Checks for input. If you press any of the arrow keys or whatever, it changes to the move state. If you press the space bar, or what is the other attack button? Enter, I think. And one of the attack buttons, it'll switch to the attack state. If you're one of the NPC orcs, it does like a timer. It has this idle timer that will go off every so often. I think it actually, like when it enters the state, like it picks a random wait time for how long it's going to stay in idle, and then it will randomly switch to the move state and tell it to go somewhere, to go in some random direction for some random period of time. Or actually, it just gives a random direction, and the move state picks the random period of time. Yeah. it picks a move timer. If the host object is not player controlled, then it will start the move timer and it will wait for this period of time. I actually wonder if I should set the wait time before I do start. I wonder if that's something I'll have to check out later. I might be running the timer on like the old wait time and then like changing the wait time for the next time the timer runs or something. I'm not sure. But what I really like about this kind of design is that it completely segregates all this like messy code here. And I guess the attack and cooldown and hurt states are actually quite simple, but like this messy code in move and in idle into these completely segregated chunks rather than having them be merged and like branching and like impossible to understand and really difficult to debug. And there's even branching in here too, which maybe I could have not done. Like I could have had a completely separate set of states for the player controlled and not player controlled version of the character. I could maybe have had two state machines on this same orc, and like one of the state machines would be used for the player controlled and the other would be used for not player controlled, and then maybe like the attack and cooldown states and hurt states could have like shared a script or something. I don't know. But even just like moving to the individual states and then having the branching for player controlled and not player controlled is like dramatically simpler than the code looked before I started doing this refactor yesterday. So yeah, the move and idle states when you're the NPC character will also look for detecting the player, detecting the enemy, and it will check I think every physics process frame. Yeah. Every physics process frame, it'll look and say, okay, what is our mode? Are we in attack mode? Okay, then I try to detect an enemy, and if there's an enemy, I'm going to change my state to move towards the enemy. And then in the move state, if you're close enough to the enemy, let's see where that code is. Yeah, if we're in attack mode, we detect an enemy, and we are less than the min attack distance away from the enemy, then we change our state to attack and attack at the evil wizard. But if we're not quite there yet, we just adjust our direction based on where the enemy is located now, and then move towards it. And then, yeah, both of the idle and move state, like if you're not in attack mode or you can't find an enemy, it falls back on finding the player and trying to follow them. So I'm not entirely sure like if I'm gonna like this in the game, but you actually have to like kind of wrangle your little minions. Like you have to get close to them for you to be within their detection range, so they'll start to follow you. And yeah, the attack is really simple. Turns on the hitbox, changes this shader parameter to make the character look white, and thrusts at them at the attack speed. I guess I called it bump speed because it was a bump attack. I don't know if I was thinking I was gonna have more than one attack rather than just the bump move when I was first working on this. But so it does the attack, and then when the attack timer is done, because it sets a little timer, it goes into cooldown mode, which does very little. It basically it rebounds you a little bit, so there's a little bit of a bounce back. You jut forward and then bounce back a little bit, and prevents you from moving. So it's to make it so that the bump attack isn't just like a dash that allows you to move really quickly. It's something that you kind of have to commit to. Like it can help you dash away, like I use it to dash away from the wizard fireball sometimes, but I can really only do it like right before it's going to hit me. And then I got to know that I'm not going to be able to move for 0.1 seconds or however long the cooldown timer, 0.2 seconds. And so then the cooldown timer drops us back into idle, where the whole thing, starts over again. Either if it's the player-controlled version, you get some input and then it switches to the move state, or if they're not the player-controlled version, it looks to see, are there enemies, are there players? It has the timer going. And yeah, like I think, I could show this state debug label thing. That's kind of cool. You can see in here there's a label saying what state the character's in when they're going. You'll notice that when they move backwards, the text is backwards. And that's because I'm doing this trick with scale to actually flip the character when they point the other direction, so that I wouldn't have to code moving the hitboxes and hurt boxes, because the sprites aren't exactly symmetrical, and certainly like the attack area isn't symmetrical. The hitbox is only in front of the orc. I can actually show it in here. This, let's hide some of these things so you can see it better. So this box in front, the one that's grayed out now because it's disabled by default, is only enabled when you do the attack, is the hit box. Because you aren't going to be hitting with your back, you're only going to be hitting with your front, the things you slide into. So when the player turns the other direction, I want this hitbox to actually go to the other side. And I do this little scale trick where I set the negative, I set the scale Y, or is it scale Y or scale X? I can't remember the logic for that at the exact moment. But I set one of the scale parameters to -1, which just flips it, just mirrors it. And that's a pretty cool trick. But yeah, I just wanted to show the state machine and how I think that's cool. The wizard doesn't use a proper state machine like that. They still have kind of like a poor man's state machine where I have a state enum and then set it to state here with very similar states as the real state machine. And maybe I'll change that if I need to make the AI for the wizard more sophisticated. But at the moment, I don't really plan to do that, given that it's Game Jam, but I only have 4 days. I gotta get all this stuff done. So next up tonight, once my kids are asleep, I'm going to be working on adding like a title screen and menus and a pause screen and the ability to quit back to the title screen and maybe like some little intro lore stuff. And I'll probably record another devlog at midnight tonight when I'm done with that. So I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.